finally put together the boom mic arm stand thing. Technical term. I feel a little weird. What do I do with my hands? I don't know. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. How we doing? MLS Week 2 is on the horizon, but I realized with the transfer window open, I haven't really done any type of wrapping up the primary transfer window because, again, it's still open. There are going to be more signings, and I'm going to talk about the teams that need to do signings until the window closes on April 23rd, but a lot of teams have done a lot of their work. There have been a ton of really big and really good signings, some overpaid, some underpaid, some good business, some bad. So I thought today that I was going to just kind of dive into some of the best transfers from this winter transfer window. And so not to make it boring where it's just only the top 10 designated players or whatever, or trying to go too hard to be a hipster and go off the board. I'm going to break it into 4 categories: top 5 designated players, top 5 U22 initiative players, top 5 non-DP signings, and top 5 intra-league signings, whether that's trade, free agency, or whatever. Enough rambling. Let's get into it. Top 5 designated players to be signed by MLS clubs so far this winter. Number 5, Pedro de la Vega to the Seattle Sounders. Number 4, Luis Muriel to Orlando City. Number 3, Pitar Musa to FC Dallas. Number 2, Emil Forsberg to the New York Red Bulls. And number 1, Joseph Pancel to the LA Galaxy. Look, and you can reorder these any way you want. I don't feel too strongly about it going anyway. Again, it's only been one game. Some of these players, particularly Pedro de la Vega, looked really, really lively in his debut with the Sounders. He didn't have a ton of training time. He was kind of in and out doing his visa work, trying to be available for that game, everything else that comes with the good old fun that is immigration and registration around MLS in the United States. But again, in his limited action against LAFC, scored a penalty, more or less, I think his first touch, which is pretty cool, against Hugo Lloris. What a moment, right? And every time he touched the ball, he looked lively. He looked exactly like what the Seattle Sounders needed. Somebody who could go off script, somebody who could be individualistic and kind of break down a locked defense in the final third. And obviously, he's going to be very dangerous in transition. He's a younger player. He's 23. He's going to come with some mistakes. But this signing from Lanús looked really, really good in his limited minutes in Week 1. I'm very excited to see how he does the rest of the season. Number 4, Luis Muriel. Orlando City signed him from Atalanta for a fee around $1 million. It was just to get him now instead of waiting until the summer. His contract was up in the summer, but Orlando paid a little bit to Atalanta to get him in now. Look, he's the most talented center forward that they've ever had, and they've had Daryl Dike and Kyle Larin. I think that he's going to be just what this team needs to take them to another level. Duncan McGuire's on the team. They can play together, I think, though Duncan McGuire's camp is a little dubious of how much that'll happen, but having maybe Luis Muriel as a second forward off of Duncan McGuire with Facundo Torres and either Martin Ojeda or Ivan Angulo on the other wing, that sets up for a really, really strong attack. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't score in their opening MLS game, but again, Muriel wasn't available to play. We'll see how that ages. We'll see what he can do for them in CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. Number 3, Pitar Musa, FC Dallas, on a $9.7 million fee from Benfica with another $3.3 million in add-ons that could be hit with performance-based incentives. This is a huge signing. A 25-year-old Croatian international. He doesn't come to MLS at any point, even 5 years ago, 3 years ago. This profile, he had other options in Italy. There's several Italian clubs trying to sign him, several Spanish clubs trying to sign him, Bundesliga, all this. He picked Dallas. Like, it wasn't that just, again, Dallas, I'm sure, put the strongest financial package on the table, but that's not new from the past either, right? Well, it's new if it's Dallas, but that's not new for an MLS team to try to overpay to get a player in. So, look, it's just a sign of the growth of the league, and I think that he's going to be really good in that Dallas team. Number 2, Emil Forsberg, kind of one of my favorite signings of the offseason. He gives the New York Red Bulls something they didn't have. I believe the fee was reported to be $3 million somewhere. It's immaterial. It doesn't really matter. It's Red Bull Leipzig to New York Red Bulls, the money from one pocket to the other. But just for continuity, somebody said it was $3 million. I haven't heard anything. And again, it's not like I was dying to chase that transfer fee number because they're all the same organization. Anyway, Emil Forsberg is just what the Red Bulls need. He's their biggest signing since Thierry Henry, according to my guy Bradley Ray Phillips. And if BWP says it, it's good enough for me, right? His debut against Nashville SC, again, they didn't score. He didn't score, and you could say same old Red Bulls, but it just looks different. He's another level of quality that this team doesn't have. He's a talisman, and he's the kind of player that can take you from being a pretty good, solid, okay team to a really, really good team, and that's exactly the signing they needed. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that they had it in them, so well done to the Red Bulls for doing it. Number 1, Joseph Pancel to the LA Galaxy from Ghent. Fee around $9 million, the 26-year-old Ghanaian international. It was a very difficult deal to get done. It was a long deal. The Galaxy were working on it for the better part of 2 months. At every point that I thought, okay, if there was no resolution yet, that means no, right? Talking to sources, it's like, no, we still think we have a chance. All this, people working on the deal, everything else. At the end of the day, the Galaxy got their guy. He starts kind of on didn't really train with the Galaxy for more than a day or two. He gets into Miami, and it was everything that I've said all offseason. The exact profile you want to put around Riqui Puig, the kind of goal dangerous, dynamic winger that makes sense with the talent on this roster. I'm really bullish now on the LA Galaxy. Him and Gabriel Peck looked really good as well in his limited minutes. But again, Joseph Pancil, I think, is the difference between this team being pretty good and really good. And again, like, they have defensive issues that needs to be solved, but an attack of Joseph Pancil around Riqui Puig is going to be elite. Top 5 non-DPs to be signed in MLS this offseason. Number 5, Bartosz Slisz from Atlanta United. Number 4, Mateus Kokoro to CF Montreal. Number 3, Hugo Lloris to LAFC. Number 2, Luis Suarez Inter Miami. And number 1, Edward Atuesta to LAFC. We'll start with number 5, Bartosz Slisz. Before I even get to him, I was going back and forth whether this spot would be Bartosz Slisz or Stian Gregerson. I was leaning Gregerson, and then I remembered that Atlanta technically are listing him as a DP right now, so he's not eligible for this category. Both are really good signings. Slisz is just what Atlanta needed in that midfield. He's going to make the game so much easier for the fullbacks, for the players around him, with such a superstar in Thiago Almada and what else the attack has. And again, the wingbacks who want to get forward, you need a destroying, ground covering, positional, like absolute anchor defensive midfielder, and that's what Bartosz Slisz projects to be. Thought he was pretty good, solid against Columbus. He had some bad moments, he had some good moments, but look, at Columbus on your MLS debut doesn't get much more difficult than that. I'm expecting to continue to see more and more from him, but still, from the moments we saw, he was tidy-ish in possession, but more importantly, ground covering, ball winning, everything else. That's going to make the game easier for everybody around him. That's a really good signing for $3.5 million from Legia Warsaw. 24 years old. It's a great profile. Number 4, Mateus Kokoro for CF Montreal from Huracan, the Uruguayan center forward. He was signed for about a fee of $2 million, and he's going to be the lead striker for Laurent Courtois' CF Montreal. He fits this team very well. He's described as like a dog off the ball, somebody who's going to work really hard against the ball, work really hard when he doesn't have the ball in possession in terms of creating space with runs. That's exactly what this team needs. I think, profiles to be a very good signing. I was surprised they didn't make him a DP, and maybe for accounting purposes they did, but I haven't seen anything different. Mateus Kokoro, very good signing, and I think that he fits that ethos, that game model very, very well. Number 3, Hugo Lloris. LAFC signed him from Tottenham. Look, this signing and the next one I felt a little weird putting them on here because Real Salt Lake didn't have this deal available to them. Hugo Lloris isn't coming to Utah for $350,000. He's not going to Vancouver for $350,000, right? You're going down the list. This is one of those deals that only LAFC, the Galaxy, Miami, and maybe 1 or 2 other teams could have made because those are the benefits of the market. Still, Lloris looks really, really good in his debut. Again, not that I'm surprised by that at all. It's just, I don't know. We've seen kind of older players, older goalies come here and not quite have the impact, but yeah, Hugo Lloris was great. His distribution was awesome. His shot stopping, most importantly, was very good as well. Look, they can get another few years out of him. And I don't think that I've talked up this signing enough until by watching him, I was like, oh my God, he looked awesome. So we'll see how that ages, but I'm assuming he's going to age very, very well. Number 2, Luis Suarez to Inter Miami from Grêmio, another free transfer. The 37-year-old legendary forward just wanted to play with Lionel Messi before he retired again. He said that for years. And again, this deal was not available to literally any other team in MLS. But again, that's, the spoils of getting Lionel Messi. Look, Suarez, there's been a lot made about Suarez's knees and what he looks like when he's running, if he's washed, if he's going to retire during the season because of medically. I don't know, man. I still see the same Luis Suarez. Look, he doesn't obviously have the same burst because he's 37 years old. But this dude's going to score a ton of goals. He's going to assist a ton of goals. He can do so many different things in the attack. He doesn't just need his burst of pace. They're going to have to manage his minutes, of course. But look, he played 4,000 minutes in Brazil last year and was the best player in the league from all counts. I believe he won Player of the Year. I mean, I don't really care if he looks a little slower coming out of the gates the first 2 games. I think he's going to be fine. Number 1, Edward Atuesta to LAFC on loan from Palmeiras. The Colombian international comes back to the club that he excelled at for a few years. Edward Atuesta is one of my favorite players to watch in MLS. He's not going to play his 6th regista role that he did under Bob Bradley because they have Ilie Sanchez. I mean, whenever Ilie doesn't play, I'm sure Edward Atuesta will play as a 6, but he's going to play in a little bit more advanced 8 role, and he's got absolute quality to do that. His final pass is really, really good. He can play in tight spaces. I think this is a phenomenal signing by LAFC. Their CSO, John Thorrington, was talking about, this deal came together pretty quickly. We didn't even think that he was available or was going to be possible. And then, we weren't necessarily even looking for it. And then it was an opportunity and we had to take it. And well done. That is really good roster building and having a plan, but being ready to deviate from that plan. If a player like Edward Atuesta becomes available. So well done, LAFC. Next category, top 5 intra-league moves, whether that's free agency, trades, whatever. Number 5, Julian Gressel to Inter Miami from free agency. Number 4, Aaron Herrera to DC United in a trade. Number 3, Kamal Miller to Portland Timbers in a trade. Number 2, Kellen Acosta to Chicago Fire in free agency. And number 1, Miles Robinson to FC Cincinnati in free agency. We'll go back to Julian Gressel. It's been a little bit slow for him starting at Inter Miami. He's trying to gel with some of the signings. He does some similar things in possession to some of their older stars. Like his strengths is in possession rather than ball winning and everything else. He's a creative player. They're going to need that throughout the season, but it's taking a little while for all the players to gel. I'm not worried about him. I think he'll be fine. He can play centerman and right wing back. We'll see how that one ages. Number 4, Aaron Herrera. Look, he's got an expensive cap hit. Part of the reason Montreal traded him so freely was because just to get rid of that cap hit. But look, good players cost money. He's one of the better right backs in the league. He's 26 years old. DC United pretty desperately need good players, and I think he fits them very well. He's going to be an asset for them. He's got to be a leader for them right now, one of their best players. So anytime that you can make your team better and it's not an egregious cap hit, it's a good trade for me. Number 3, Kamal Miller. Portland Timbers acquired him from Inter Miami for around $775,000 in allocation money plus some other assets. The 26-year-old was a key player for Miami last year after excelling with CF Montreal. Miami traded him for there when Phil Neville was the coach, and now Phil Neville's the coach of Portland and traded from here. Miami didn't necessarily want to lose Kamal Miller, but they desperately needed allocation money this offseason and figured that Kamal Miller, Portland really wanted him, and it's just part of the finances, part of the salary cap. Portland desperately needed center back and anchor. Game 1, they played well. It's a small sample size. The team's going to get better throughout the season. But they really, really needed somebody like Kamal Miller. So well done by going out and getting him. Number 2, Kellen Acosta, Chicago Fire in free agency. He was with LAFC the last couple years, back-to-back MLS Cup finalists, winning one MLS Cup, getting to a CONCACAF Champions Cup final, all of that. He was one of the 2 best free agents on the market, and Chicago Fire, after a lot of talking, after a lot of working on it and recruiting, they did get him to commit. They got him to sign. And Chicago Fire, they revamped their team with Hugo Kuipers and Kellen Acosta. Kellen is a player that I think all clubs should be looking into, and I'm sure that they were. Chicago really, really needed him, both in his on-field quality, which is obvious and most important, but also in helping rebuild that culture, rebuild that locker room, and a pillar of professionalism and everything that the club can build around, makes players around him better. Kellen Acosta, again, that's another player that, his cap hits, when the salaries come out, is going to be high. But again, good players cost money, and particularly a team like Chicago Fire really, really needed Kellen Acosta. Number 1, Miles Robinson, FC Cincinnati. Signed him in free agency when we all thought it was either back to Atlanta United or going to Europe. Cincy were targeted him early. They got him to come on the first day of free agency for a visit, and they convinced him to sign and stay in MLS. I think that Miles Robinson is going to be even better with FC Cincinnati than he was in Atlanta, and I thought he was really good with Atlanta. I think that his skill set fits FC Cincinnati much better in terms where he'll play the Yerson Mosquera role, where he'll just go be a ball winner, go be a hunter, rather than Atlanta want to play more of the possession. I think he's fine at that. I think that he's just much better at going and winning the ball, covering distance with his athleticism and his intelligence, everything else. FC Cincinnati won the Supporters Shield and went out and signed the best free agent on the market. Best intra-league move this offseason. Last category, and then I'll stop talking, I promise. Top 5 U22 initiative signings of this offseason. Number 5, Noah Ellie, center back to the New York Red Bulls. Number 4, Fidel Barajas, winger, Mexican Youth International, Real Salt Lake. David Martinez, number 3, LAFC, Venezuelan Youth International winger. Number 2, Jovan Mijatovic to NYCFC. Number 1, Federico Redondo to Inter Miami. So Noah Ellie, he started this weekend for the Red Bulls. He looked much more smooth on the ball than I thought he was going to be. I knew that he was a big aerial threat, somebody who's going to fit in the Red Bull system very well, somebody that would remind me probably of Sean Nealis. Maybe that's lazy because it's a couple tall white dudes who are dominant in the air. But Noah Ellie showed me some more quality than I thought that he had. And again, at 21 years old, making his debut in a new country, new continent, new team, all that, I was really, really impressed. We'll see how many more minutes he can win. I didn't think that he was going to have a regular track 2 minutes because of how good the partnership of Andres Reyes and Sean Nealis was, but he might be difficult to keep off the field, and this helps the team. They can play with 3 at the back if Sandro Schwartz wants to do that. Number 4, Fidel Barajas to Real Salt Lake from Charleston in the USL Championship for around a $250,000 fee. That's a steal for a player of his quality. He's the best young prospect to come out of the USL since Diego Luna, and people probably rate Fidel Barajas a little bit higher than they did Luna when he was leaving USL just because of his age. He won USL Young Player of the Year. He was a key player for Mexico at the U17 World Cup. He's still eligible for the United States, but he's a Mexican youth international right now. Well done by RSL to going and identifying some of the best young talents in the country, not just from their academy, not just from other countries, but USL. Like they've been at the forefront of this. I think this kid is going to turn into a real player. Let's see what he does under Pablo Mastroeni. Diego Luna benefited massively from Mastroeni. It could have went either way. It could have been, oh no, like his development got stunted or whatever, but no, both parties bought into each other. It was really good, and I'm expecting the same with Fidel Barajas. Number 3, David Martinez, an 18-year-old Venezuelan youth international winger signed by LFC from the Venezuelan league for north of $3 million. I believe that's the most expensive fee abroad for a Venezuelan league player. Look, I missed him in the top 15 Wonder Kids video, and I felt pretty bad about it when I noticed a couple of days later, because when I was doing my prep work, the deal wasn't done and whatever. I missed it. It's on me. I gotta be better. David Martinez is a really, really big talent. Just watching him, he was at the U23 South American Olympic qualifiers of Venezuela. Reminder, he just turned 18. So he's going against players who are at some points 5 years older than him. And he was one of Venezuela's best players. He's scoring against some of these really big teams. David Martinez, I think, is going to be everything that we all thought Stipe Biuk was going to be last year for LAFC. I cannot wait to watch him start to get minutes and what he does in that team. Number 2, Jovan Mijatovic, a center forward, Serbian youth international center forward who NYCFC signed from Red Star Belgrade for around $8.6 million up front with add-ons to take that fee further north. Look, he's one of the brightest talents, rising young forwards in Europe. He had, I think, 8 goals in like 800 minutes with Red Star's first team. That club is an absolute factory in terms of producing talent. Serbia has a lot of talent in their national team. This kind of player usually doesn't come to MLS. Like, NYCFC convinced him. The league has grown to the point where it's the right opportunity for Jovan Mijatovic to come to NYCFC for a few years and then go back to Europe, rather than either staying at Red Star or going to another stepping stone club in Europe to want to make his move to a bigger team in Europe. He's coming here. I think that's absolutely huge for this league, absolutely huge for NYCFC scouting and recruitment. That was very good. I'm so excited to see how he plays. Young forwards are inconsistent. He's going to have a lot of burden on him because they don't have more. Like, David Martinez didn't play in LAFC's win against Seattle. Like, Jovan Mijatovic came off the bench for NYCFC. He was like, oh, crap, we need a goal. And, like, you're our best forward. So get on there. Like, we don't care if you're, hey, like, you might have just gotten into training a week ago or whatever, 18 years old, adapting to a new league. Hey, we need you. So it's going to be tough for him, but I think he'll rise to the challenge. Number 1, Federico Redondo, Inter Miami from Argentinos Juniors. Fee around $8 million, I believe it's been reported. The 21-year-old. Look, it's going to be lazy, but it's kind of true from everything I've heard from scouts, from media members, from people who I trust, that he's like Sergio Busquets 2.0. He's just a defensive midfielder who's so clean on the ball, great in possession. And again, he's going to get all these comparisons because now he's going to be playing with Sergio Busquets. But everything I've heard from scouts that this kid are shocked, that they're shocked that this kid came to MLS, that he was somebody destined not just for Europe, but could probably skip a stepping stone club, somebody who could maybe go to Real Madrid or something like that on the way, like rather than just, again, a stepping stone club. Like, this is a really huge signing. It's how they did it on the cap. Well done to them. I mean, Facundo Farias got injured, and they had an open U22 initiative slot because of that, and they used it to sign this player. It's just pretty incredible business, pretty incredible recruitment. Well done by ownership, putting up all the money for this. You know, obviously Messi's very expensive and everything else, and they put in all of these transfer fees for these young players. So you gotta respect the ambition for Miami there. All right, that'll do it for today for the best signings so far of the offseason. Again, I think most of the signings are done, but there are a few big splashes to come. And again, I believe I'm going to talk about that in a video hopefully tomorrow about the teams to watch around MLS over the next month and a half with the transfer window open. We got games this weekend. We got CONCACAF Champions Cup continuing to ramp up. Brandon Vasquez is coming back to Cincinnati with Monterrey. I think that's going to be really, really fun. I'm excited to see that happen. There's a lot of great storylines. We're full speed ahead into this season. Vamos.